Informative speech on pu-erh tea. A tea costing up to $3,000 for a single ounce makes pu-erh one of the most expensive teas in the world. So what exactly is pu-erh? What is the history behind this extraordinary tea? Since the 7th century, pu-erh has become one of the most consumed teas in the world, as well as the most consumed tea in China today. Though there are many different types of tea, I find myself that the pu-erh variety of tea is by far the most interesting. Pu-erh is one of China's most valued teas and carries with it some of the coolest stories behind the tea itself and the most complex and varied ways of production. Before we can get in depth about pu-erh tea, you must have a better understanding of what tea is. Tea is believed to have been created around the same time as beer, not before. As legend has it, Emperor Shang sometime around the 2700 BC, had a leaf from the Camellia sinensis tree, just a little illustration here, fall into his hot water. The Camellia sinensis tree is actually a tea bush, we now call a tea bush. And Shang loved the water so much that he had his servants search for the match of the tea leaf that he found in his pot, and they're discovering tea. Tea has now been a staple drink in China, and is one of the most important drinks in the world, being the second most consumed beverage behind water. Many types of tea have been discovered since, and one found itself as an accidental discovery, just as the leaf pu-erh is composed of. Pu-erh tea was never supposed to be a variety of tea. Pu-erh is actually a city in the Yunnan province, in the lower, somewhat central side of China. In the 7th century, what they did with tea is they compacted it, and they actually would take tea and strap to the sides of horses, so they could get a bunch of tea in small spaces, and they'd also strap it to the back of workers. So what would happen is as they made their journey from the north side of the Yunnan province, where most tea is picked, down to the south side, it was humid, and the tea would start to ferment and age. And by the time it was sold in pu-erh, the tea would be what we now call pu-erh tea. It would be a aged fermented tea and had a very distinct flavor. And actually, at one point, pu-erh tea was made in bricks, and they used it as currency because it was such a distinctive, amazing tea. Today, pu-erh is widely produced, and there are two main types. There's a raw, which you can see here. A raw type of raw variety of pu-erh tea is when they just simply take the tea, fresh from the fields, and they dry it out, and they compact it into these discs. You can see there. And then there's a ripened or cooked version of it, where they actually ferment the tea before they compact it into these discs, and they do that in sort of a accelerated, decomposing compost kind of way. And then they compact it into these discs. But all pu-erh is originally started basically the same way. It's picked from old trees, the lower leaves, the bigger leaves, and then they make it into a variety of different teas, such as a black tea or a green tea. Occasionally they have oolong teas that's a mixture, that's in between black and green. And then they take those teas and they either decide to go ripened or cooked and ferment it in these large compost piles, or they go ahead and compact it with these big stones into discs and many other different shapes. Actually, the different shapes we have here are bird's nests. That's a very common shape in China. This is the most common. It's a disc. We have a mushroom, a brick, very rare pu-erh teas come in a melon shape, and the most rare pu-erh teas are always printed with the logo of the company. Pu-erh is a deeply embedded culture. Pu-erh is a tea deeply embedded in the culture of China. As with most tea, it's finally making its way to the Western world. I hope this will help you understand the rarity of such a tea, and I wish for everyone to help support the new tea in our nation by at least giving this tea a try in order to add to a 1,000-year tradition of pu-erh tea.